Going back to Kansas State and Michigan State. So Kansas State is the 3 seed in the East region, and Michigan State is the 7 seed. Yet, Michigan State, similar to the Kentucky line, is a short favorite here. Michigan State -2 is the current spread as of Monday night. Opened MSU -1. Total about 137.5, 137.5. It opened at 136.5. So just going back to the under stuff that we saw in the first couple of rounds, I have a piece on thelines.com breaking that down with unders cash in at about a 66, a little bit above a 66% clip over the first 2 rounds, and more detail as to why over at thelines.com. But a little bit of steam so far earlier in the week towards the over. Not that a point matters, but it kind of does when we're discussing college basketball totals. So, Justin, I'll let you tip things off here. Michigan State -2 against K-State at the Garden.
Yeah, this is going to be a great one. I'm actually going to be in attendance for this game. Going to head down to the Garden on Thursday. So look out for someone wearing some shot quality gear, screaming their head off. It's going to be a good time. I'm really excited about this. Of course, people were expecting maybe a little bit of a different matchup here. It feels like everyone really wanted Kentucky and Duke at the Garden. Neither team will be there. So look, it makes the ticket prices a little bit better for me. I always appreciate that. So yeah, actually shot quality is going to agree with the line on this one. We have it as 71.1 to 68.7 in favor of Michigan State. I think this is going to be a great game. Of course, we saw Marquise Noel put on a show in his last game out, and he's back home in the place he's from. He's a New Yorker, so I think he's going to be super hyped to play at the Garden. But I don't know, Michigan State played a really, really solid game their last time out. I don't think there was anything too fraudulent about their performance. Looking into the shot quality numbers for that game, we expected them to beat Marquette by 5 on the expected. Of course, they got it done by 9. That's pretty much within regular standard deviation and error for me, so I'm not really going to look too deep into that. Pretty convincing win. I really do think Michigan State comes in and has a good shot to get this done. We're projecting them to win it 64% of the time, and that's tough, seeing the lower seed, but they've definitely played very well. Marquette is put a good run on them to try to come back. USC, pretty solid team as well. They've been playing pretty well since that Ohio State loss in the conference tournament.
A couple of notes there, and you bring up the shot quality score with Michigan State. I don't want to go back to Kansas State, Kentucky first. So normally when you look at a box score, especially with Kentucky, just going back to over the last 3 or 4 years, they haven't had a ton of perimeter floor spaces, especially when they struggled. I think it was 3 years ago. But Kentucky shot 4 of 20 on threes, and I think this speaks to the shot quality score, with Kentucky hypothetically beating Kansas State, Marquise Noel, on the shot quality box score. So Cat shot 4-20 from 3. Antonio Reeves, 1 of 10. He got a lot of open looks. So that agrees with the eye test. And I also think it correlates to Michigan State hypothetically getting some positive three-point shooting regression. They shot 2 of 16 from deep against Marquette. Jordan Akins and Tyson Walker combined 0 of 8. You rarely see that with a Michigan State team that doesn't necessarily rely on threes, but they're pretty efficient. One of the more efficient three-point shooting teams, I think top 10 in three-point efficiency across college basketball. And I would also expect a little bit of shooting regression for Kansas State's three-point defense, because overall they're giving up a 29.7% clip on the season. Now that's over obviously a long span of time. So you could say, would regression have come at this point? But just from the notion that you would expect Michigan State to shoot better against a no-middle defense, Kansas State is a little bit more vulnerable when it comes to the mid-range game, which, again, Michigan State does run those pin-down screens for Walker and Hauser a lot. But I would expect Michigan State, especially Walker and Akins, to get some more of those threes to drop. Now, the concern I do have for Michigan State for Kansas State, in terms of a little bit of a downgrade here for the Spartans, when you look at a individual category, the Wildcats rank number 44 in adjusted tempo on KenPom, and that speaks to just them wanting to play up tempo. We saw it against Kentucky yesterday with those sick passes from Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, especially on the fast break. Michigan State's transition defense, well, They don't necessarily crash the offensive glass a ton. I know Sissoko's a pretty good rebounder, but they do try to get back. But even with that being said, not a great transition defense. And I think shot quality can speak to that too. So if Kansas State's able to control the pace here and dictate the pace with Noel operating in transition against Tyson Walker, that is, then I think K-State has the advantage, again, if they're able to speed things up. But in the half court, you get a really good on-ball defender in A.J. Hogard against Noel, and I think that favors Michigan State. So the line to me is about right per my projections, and just with this getting steamed up about a point, I think it's going to settle at around 1.5, 2 come tip time on Thursday, early Thursday evening. But I do favor Michigan State from a matchup standpoint if they're able to keep things more so in the half court.
Yep, I'm with you. Michigan State is going to be how I will be playing this as well. And to your point, Kansas State, definitely one of those teams that has gotten lucky in terms of their 3-point variance against. We're expecting teams to be shooting 4% better against them from deep across the entire season. So that's a pretty serious amount. It amounts to about, 0.06 points per possession more for their entire defense this year in our regression stats. And you mentioned it. I mean, the shots that they were allowing in that last game kind of indicated to us that Kansas State should have lost. So might be sitting here on a little bit of luck. And we've seen that teams that tend to win on those luck scores can be a little bit overpriced in the market. So I tend to think that this could be a letdown for Kansas State. Michigan State played a little bit more of a reliable game. What really stood out to me is K-State allowing Kentucky to score in the 86th percentile nationally for the entire season against them and still coming away with a win while they scored less effectively. So if they allow for Michigan State to score that effectively, I don't know if they're able to shoot their way into a win, which is essentially what happened. I mean, I literally tweeted about it, Eli. Kansas State was hitting some of the most ridiculous shots for a few minutes there in that second half to really propel them to even be in a scenario to get that win. So, what I've seen in this game for the 140 days we've been covering it this season is it's very hard to have multiple performances like that in a row. We've seen players like Jalen Pickett try to give that a go, and some guys can do it. Trust me, Noel will play very well, but he's going to need everybody else to continue to outperform expectations if they want to get past Michigan State. And I think betting against overperforming expectations is a smart way to play it.
Yeah, and just to go back to, not to play devil's advocate, because both of our numbers do side with Michigan State, but in terms of contested shot making, Michigan State does it too with Walker and Hauser, especially from behind the arc. And Holger, to an extent, I would say Tyson Walker is the best contested shot maker on the Spartans. So you can make the case that, yes, Marquise Noel hit some difficult shots against Kentucky. Walker does it seemingly every game, and he did it against Marquette too. I think a contested mid-range jump shot. That layup that he hit too down the stretch in the last few minutes, I don't know how he got that over Marquette's defense. That was wild. So the guy is elite. I think you could put him in that category at hitting contested shots. We saw it in East Lansing. I think it was on President's Day, maybe Martin Luther King Jr. Day against Purdue, where he was hitting some ridiculous contested shots down the stretch. So it goes both ways, but I do agree with you that regression should, keyword should, be coming for Kansas State. We see it all the time. Just one more quick note for this game. Not that I want to spend too much time. Granted, I don't know how much time we're really going to talk Creighton-Princeton, so maybe this kind of takes over that game a little bit. Yeah, I think we could both agree on that. The motivational, because someone's going to bring this up. You're going to hear it on some podcast. Someone's going to tweet it out. And again, I don't want to necessarily even spend a minute on this point, but Marquise Noel going back to the Garden, you could hypothetically say it's a motivational factor, but that can also completely play against a player from nerves. You're going back home. I think they said on the broadcast that he hasn't been home in 3 years in New York. So I don't want to say, that's me saying either way, it could play one way or the other, or it could have no effect on the game.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you watched those rims in the Big East tournament. I don't know who's making shots if they didn't replace them. I mean, it was just, brick city out there. So I don't know if that continues. There was a really strong undertrend in that tournament. So you could see that hit. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Noel maybe miss a few. It's a lot of nerves. There's a lot of also, something that doesn't maybe get taken into effect is the audio, not the audio. What am I talking? The acoustics in Madison Square Garden are unlike anything. I mean, Noel playing, of course, in the Little Apple now to the Big Apple, but he's from here, but he was at Little Rock, Little Apple, Big Apple. Marquise Noel's journey has been awesome, but could be nerves. I think we're going to get a great game. It's an early game. I wouldn't be shocked to see this one start a little slow, though, if I had to make a gut wager on the total.
So 5 seconds here, just gut reaction to my question. Would you look to play, and you'll be at the Garden, so you'll be a little ahead of the books on your mobile device in theory, depending on what kind of reception you get. Would you consider playing a live over if it is a slow start?
Yeah, I would. I do think that these teams will probably get into it in the second half, probably see the defensive intensity lower a little bit. I think what we've seen in these tournaments, you talked about the percentage of unders. Well, he was even higher in the first 2 days, right? And as the better team starts to remain, you get a little bit more offensive efficiency, guys who can make shots, guys who are hot making shots, teams that are effectively scoring right now, playing their best ball are still here. So I think overs will continue to trend a little bit. So I wouldn't hate a live over if it does start slow for sure.
I'm a little jealous of you going to the Garden, but at the same time, and I guess I was traveling, so you take into account too the just going, having to go from one city to another, going down south when I went to the Final Four last year in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with traveling this March. Absolutely zero travel. I want to sit on my damn couch and watch basketball because we are both. See, I say this, we are both exhausted, but I was thinking about this before the podcast, man. Like, we are both so freaking lucky, to be breaking these games down. I am so excited for the Sweet 16 of the Elite Eight this weekend. So just a note there. We're not complaining. I'm not complaining by any means.
No. We're lucky enough to both work covering one of the most entertaining sports out there. I mean, I was literally, before we got on camera, right, I was telling you how awesome it has been being a part of Shot Quality since July. We're really excited for everything we're building over there. And it was actually a really great weekend. We had some great shout outs. Our bracket's doing great. So we can't complain. Shot Quality is going to be a household name, hopefully shortly.
And speaking of shot quality, thank you very much for the reminder, Justin. Looking at the Sweet 16 shot quality rankings, Kansas State, in terms of adjusted shot quality ranking per the website, Kansas State ranks number 9 and Michigan State ranks number 14. So I guess 30 seconds here. I gave you 5 seconds for the live over cap because I do want to get to Arkansas, UConn.
Ooh.
So when someone says to you, okay, Michigan State, 3rd ranked team per the shot quality Sweet 16 rankings, why are you betting Michigan State?
Right. Well, look, I'll tell you something that's really important in college basketball. You know it, Eli. Everyone knows it. It's about how the matchups work. And, if we were just, I guess, sort of put Kansas State and Michigan State against the average opponent, this is where the rankings kind of would start to come into play, how you see them when you look at just a power ratings type system. But the thing is that you're not playing an average opponent. You're playing an opponent with specific skills. And so when we handicap the games, just because one team is better than another doesn't necessarily mean they're unable to defeat the better rated team in shot quality, especially when maybe the worst rated team is better at defending, the thing that the opponent does well, right? So if you have a team like Kansas State who, might be taking some of those contested looks, if Michigan State's going to be good at defending the off dribble 3, it's going to lower our expectations on what Kansas State's going to produce versus what they might have done in their body of work for the season, which is where these ratings are really taken from. So you need to separate the entire thing from, the single game and try to use what you know from the season to predict how they're going to play, not just which team's better against, any random group of 5 you put out there.
Enough said. Great explanation.